Hello, everyone. Tonight, we'll take a quick look at how astronauts live in space. Enjoy listening. Somewhere above your ceiling, above the weather, above the thin blue line of air that makes Earth feel safe and familiar, a small habitat moves through the dark. It doesn't fly like an airplane. It doesn't float like a balloon. It simply falls around the planet endlessly, so smoothly that the people inside feel weightless. Inside that moving home, an astronaut drifts through a corridor with a gentle push of 2 fingers. No footsteps, no creaking floorboards. Just the soft hush of ventilation fans, the quiet clicking of equipment, and the occasional muted voice from a radio. And then, like you, this astronaut starts preparing for sleep. Not because space is sleepy. Space is not sleepy at all. Space is bright with radiation, fast with motion, and full of hard physics that never takes a break. But the human body needs rest, wherever it is. So tonight, let's follow the everyday life of astronauts in orbit, how they live, what they eat and drink, how they stay clean, how they work, and how they sleep. Not like a lecture, not like a news report, more like a slow walk through their routine, one calm detail at a time. A rival learning a home without up or down. The first strange thing about living in orbit is that direction becomes a choice. On Earth, down is written into every muscle you have. Gravity is a constant suggestion, repeated so often it feels like truth itself. Your feet know where the floor is, even in the dark. Your stomach knows what falling means. In orbit, those instincts don't disappear, not at first. They just don't match reality anymore. An astronaut enters the station and pauses for a moment because their body expects weight. It expects the familiar pressure through the soles of the feet. Instead, there's only a gentle, persistent, floating-like being held by invisible water that doesn't get you wet. They reach for a handrail. Almost every module has them. Handrails are the furniture of microgravity. You don't walk down a hallway, you pull yourself along it, or you push gently and glide, then stop yourself before you bump into a panel. The station has floors and ceilings, but those labels are for convenience. A wall can become a floor simply because someone put a laptop there and decided today that surface is down. Early on, some astronauts feel space motion sickness. The inner ear, built to detect gravity and acceleration, sends confusing signals. The eyes disagree with the vestibular system. The brain negotiates. The stomach complains. Then, usually within days, adaptation arrives like a quiet sunrise. The body rewrites its expectations. The station stops feeling like a strange machine and starts feeling like a place. And once a place becomes familiar, routine follows. The quiet machine air that must be managed. On Earth, air is everywhere and almost free. You only notice it when it changes, when it's too hot, too cold, too smoky, too thin. In orbit, air is always noticed, even when it's not being thought about. The station's atmosphere is carefully controlled. pressure, temperature, humidity, oxygen level, carbon dioxide level. Sensors watch constantly. Fans move air through filters and scrubbers. That last part, fans, matters more than most people expect. On Earth, warm air rises and cool air sinks. That constant motion helps mix a room naturally. In microgravity, air can become still, forming invisible pockets. If the air did not circulate, an astronaut could exhale a little cloud of carbon dioxide that lingers around the face longer than it should. So the station breathes with machinery, airflow that keeps oxygen evenly distributed and pulls carbon dioxide towards systems that remove it. This is why space habitats often have a steady background hum, like a gentle mechanical wind. Many astronauts learn to sleep with it the way people on Earth sleep with rain sounds or a distant fan. A small comfort, the station is noisy in a dependable way. Predictable noise is easier to relax into than sudden silence. Water, a daily miracle that gets reused. In space, water is not just a drink. It's a schedule, a system, a responsibility. Resupply vehicles bring water from Earth, but long-duration living depends on recycling. Moisture from the air collected from humidity can be condensed and purified. And urine can be processed too, cleaned through multiple stages until it becomes potable. This can sound unsettling until you remember something quietly profound. Earth recycles water as well. Every sip you've ever taken has had a long history. Clouds, rivers, soil, plants, animals, time. A space station simply does the same loop with pumps and filters rather than oceans and weather. Drinking is different in microgravity. There is no pouring a glass and setting it on a table. Liquids don't settle. They form floating spheres and cling to surfaces. Astronauts drink from pouches with valves or straws. They squeeze gently, take measured sips, and reseal the container. Nothing spills if you let go, because the liquid stays where it's contained, and you don't want free-floating water in a spacecraft. Water in orbit is treated with a kind of respectful precision, not anxious, just careful, like handling something precious because it is. Food, familiar comfort, engineered for safety. Meals in orbit have two jobs. One is obvious: nutrition, calories, protein, vitamins, minerals, especially the nutrients that support bone and muscle when gravity is absent. The other job is less obvious but just as real: morale. Food is comfort. Food is a reminder of home. Food is one of the few daily experiences that can still feel deeply human when everything else feels engineered. Space food comes in several forms: shelf-stable packaged meals, dehydrated foods that are rehydrated with measured water, thermostabilized meals designed for long storage, and occasionally fresh items delivered by resupply fruit, small vegetables, special treats that vanish quickly because everyone wants a bite of something crisp. Bread is tricky. Crumbs are tiny hazards in microgravity. A crumb can drift into an air vent, an electrical panel, an eye. So astronauts often use tortillas, which fold neatly and don't shed crumbs the way sliced bread does. Taste can change in orbit. Body fluids shift upward slightly, making the face feel a little puffy, like mild congestion. Smell and taste are linked, so flavors can seem muted. Many astronauts prefer stronger tastes, spicy sauces, tangy condiments. Meals are often eaten from packages, with utensils that are simple and practical. Everything is designed to avoid floating bits. Even a single grain of rice wants to become a tiny satellite. When schedules allow, astronauts eat together. There might not be a dining room in the classic sense, but there are shared spaces, straps to hold items in place, and the small ritual of pausing work to be people together. On a station, teamwork is life support. Shared meals help keep that teamwork human. Clothing, wearing cleanliness, conserving resources. On Earth, you wash clothes because you can. Water is available. Machines are heavy but common. Laundry is a nuisance, not a mission constraint. In orbit, there's no typical washing machine. Water is precious. Power is budgeted. Mass is limited. So astronauts wear clothing designed for comfort and practicality, and they rotate items in a planned way. Some clothing is worn multiple times. When clothing is spent, it becomes part of waste management, packed and eventually loaded onto cargo vehicles that burn up in the atmosphere during re-entry. It's a strange thought, but also a poetic one. A worn t-shirt after months of orbit becomes a brief streak of light returning to Earth as a small, controlled meteor. Hygiene, staying clean without a shower. A shower on Earth is a reset button. In orbit, hygiene is more like a careful ritual. Free water droplets floating around a spacecraft would be dangerous. They could get into electronics, block vents, or create damp pockets where microbes thrive. So astronauts don't shower in the normal sense. Instead, they use rinseless body wipes, no rinse shampoo, small amounts of water applied with cloths, routines for cleaning surfaces because a sealed habitat needs to stay healthy. They brush their teeth much like you do, but they manage the foam carefully spitting into a towel or controlled receptacle rather than letting anything fall into a sink. Hair is handled with care too. Loose strands float. They can drift into filters. So grooming tools are used with attention, and the station's cleaning routine is constant, gentle, and thorough. The result is not luxury, but it is cleanliness. And cleanliness in a closed environment is not vanity, it's biology. The bathroom, a masterpiece of uncelebrated engineering. There are glamorous technologies in spaceflight, and then there are the technologies everyone silently respects. Space toilets are in that second category. Without gravity, waste doesn't go where you expect it to. So the toilet uses airflow-controlled suction to guide liquids and solids into the correct containers. Astronauts train for this on Earth with mock-ups. There are alignment aids. There are procedures. The system is designed to be reliable, but it still requires attention. In microgravity, you don't improvise around plumbing. Liquid waste can be routed into recycling systems. Solid waste is stored and later disposed of via cargo vehicles. It's not glamorous, but it's deeply human. Even in orbit, life continues, and life produces waste, and survival requires handling it calmly and correctly. A workday in orbit science, maintenance, and time discipline. A space station is not a vacation home. It's a laboratory, a workshop, and a habitat. Astronauts follow a schedule planned in detail. Scientific experiments in biology, physics, materials, medicine. Equipment maintenance, filters, pumps, sensors, computers, inspections and repairs. Communication with mission control. Documentation, photos, logs, procedures. Cleaning, because closed habitats demand it. And daily exercise, because bodies need it. Maintenance is not background. Maintenance is part of the mission. On Earth, if something breaks, you call a technician. In orbit, the technician is already there, and they might also be the scientist running an experiment, the engineer troubleshooting a system, and the person taking out the trash. Time is structured because structure protects performance. The station orbits Earth about every 90 minutes, which means astronauts see many sunrises and sunsets every day. Beautiful, yes, also disruptive. Natural light cues can't anchor a stable day-night rhythm, so the station uses lighting schedules and mission planning to create a consistent day. The body likes a story: morning, work, evening, rest. Even in space, humans live by rhythm. Exercise, the daily fight against weightlessness. On Earth, gravity constantly loads your bones and muscles. Standing, walking, climbing stairs, ordinary movement keeps the body strong. In orbit, the body tries to adapt in a way that's efficient but risky long-term. Muscles can weaken, especially postural muscles. Bones can lose density. The cardiovascular system shifts. Body fluids redistribute. So astronauts exercise almost every day, often for around 2 hours, using specialized equipment. A treadmill with a harness system that gently holds them down. A stationary cycle-like device. Resistance machines designed to mimic weightlifting without actual weights. It's not about aesthetics. It's about returning to Earth able to stand, walk, and function safely. There's something quietly grounding about this. Astronauts train their bodies for gravity while living without it. They practice for home while far from home. Health and medicine, caring for a body in an unnatural place. Even in orbit, bodies have ordinary problems. Headaches, minor injuries, sleep disruption, irritation from dry air, nausea during early adaptation, congestion-like sensations from fluid shifts. Astronauts have medical supplies on board and training for basic care. They also have ground support, flight surgeons, and medical teams who consult by communication links. Longer stays bring additional concerns. Increased radiation exposure compared to Earth's surface. Changes in vision reported by some astronauts over time. Immune system differences under stress and altered environments. Spaceflight medicine is partly about responding to issues and partly about learning. A station is a place where the human body is studied respectfully because future missions longer, farther, depend on understanding what changes and how to counter it. And through all of it, the approach remains steady. Monitor, prevent, respond calmly. Psychological life, privacy, patience, and being a good crewmate. A station is close quarters. It's international. It's collaborative. And it's always there. You can't step outside for fresh air in the normal way. That makes emotional skills as important as technical skills. Astronauts practice communication, conflict management, and routines that support mental health. Clear, direct language during work. Respect for personal space. Scheduled private time. Shared meals when possible. Small rituals, music, photos, holidays, tiny celebrations. They can send messages, emails, and sometimes make video calls with family. Time delays are not as severe in low Earth orbit as they would be farther out, but schedules still matter. Contact windows still matter. People still miss people. The station can feel like a busy workplace and a distant outpost at the same time. A crew that functions well is not just more pleasant, it's safer. Cooperation is a survival tool. The window Earth as a moving nightlight. There is a moment many astronauts describe, often quietly, often with a kind of reverence, floating by a window and seeing Earth. During the day, the planet looks bright and textured, cloud systems swirling like brushstrokes, deserts pale and vast, ocean deep and heavy with color. At night, the world becomes a map of human presence. Cities glow, coastlines trace faint outlines, lightning storms flicker in silence inside clouds. And always there is the atmosphere, a thin blue arc at the horizon, delicate and luminous, like a fragile boundary between life and the rest of the universe. From orbit, Earth does not look infinite. It looks protected by something very thin. That sight can change the way a person thinks. Some call it the overview effect, a sense of unity, fragility, and perspective. For our story tonight, it is also simply calming. The idea that someone can float in a quiet module and watch their whole world pass by like a lantern. Spacewalks when outside is not a place for bare skin. Sometimes the work must be done outside the station, installing equipment, repairing hardware, upgrading systems. A spacewalk is physically demanding and mentally intense. The spacesuit is not clothing, it is a personal spacecraft. Oxygen supply, carbon dioxide removal, temperature control, communications, protection from micrometeoroids, and harsh thermal swings. Astronauts move slowly and methodically. They attach tethers. They follow checklists. They treat every action as deliberate. Outside, there is no air, no pressure, no forgiveness for carelessness. Inside, when they return, the station feels different, warmer, safer, gentler. Indoors becomes the place you appreciate with your whole nervous system. And afterward, there is often fatigue, a deep, full-body tiredness, the kind that makes sleep feel earned. Safety routines, practicing calm for uncalm possibilities. Spaceflight is safe because it is prepared, not because it is inherently gentle. Crews train for emergencies, fire, pressure leaks, ammonia leaks in certain systems, medical issues, contingencies requiring quick isolation of modules. They practice responses until those responses are familiar. Familiarity reduces panic. The goal is not to feel fearless. The goal is to act correctly even if you feel afraid. In a quiet way, this is one of the most human things about astronauts. Courage, expressed as routine. They don't rely on bravery as a mood. They rely on procedures as a skill. And when the day is normal, which it usually is, the presence of that preparation makes the normal day feel even calmer. Sleeping in space, floating rest, carefully arranged. Now we come to the part of the story that sounds most impossible until you remember. Humans can get used to almost anything. The sleeping space. Astronauts typically sleep in small, private crew quarters, compact compartments with a door or curtain, lighting controls, ventilation, and storage for personal items. Instead of a bed, there is a sleeping bag. The sleeping bag is attached to a wall, sometimes near a workstation, sometimes in a dedicated nook. Without gravity, you don't need a mattress to hold you up, but you do need to stay in place. If you don't tether yourself, you can drift. Drift into a wall. Drift into equipment. Drift into a spot with more light or more noise. The station is not dangerous in normal conditions, but it is full of hard surfaces. So astronauts zip into the sleeping bag and secure it. Some secure their arms too, loosely, so their hands don't float into their face in the night. In microgravity, your limbs can drift as you relax, like branches in slow water. What it feels like. Many astronauts describe space sleep as a kind of gentle floating. No pressure points, no weight on shoulders or hips, no need to roll over to relieve discomfort. But they also describe challenges. The constant background noise of equipment, the difficulty of maintaining circadian rhythm without natural day-night cues, stress, workload, excitement, and responsibility. Light leaking in from windows or station lighting. Sometimes just the mind being awake, because everything is unusual. To manage this, astronauts build bedtime routines, dimming lights, using eye masks if needed, keeping the crew quarter comfortable, scheduling sleep consistently, and creating a familiar sequence of actions that tells the brain it is time. The station helps too. Lighting systems can be adjusted in brightness and color to support daily rhythms. Brighter, cooler light for day, warmer, dimmer light for evening. Because the body, even in space, still listens to light as a clock. The sound of rest. When you imagine space, you might imagine silence, but a space station is never silent. Fans run continuously, air moves constantly, systems hum, and in a way, that sound becomes part of sleep. It becomes a steady, ocean-like presence, a mechanical lullaby. On Earth, silence can feel peaceful. In orbit, silence would be suspicious. A quiet, steady hum means the station is alive. Dreams and the mind at night. In unusual environments, people sometimes report vivid dreams. The mind processes novelty at night, and orbit is novelty layered upon novelty. The view of Earth, the sensation of floating, the constant awareness of procedures, the knowledge that outside is vacuum. The mind takes these ingredients and turns them into stories while the body rests. And in the morning, whatever morning means, when you see 16 sunrises in 24 hours, the astronaut wakes, unzips the sleeping bag, and drifts out into the day. A slow evening routine, how night happens in orbit. Imagine an astronaut approaching the end of a workday. They finish the last scheduled task, maybe logging experiment data, cleaning up tools, securing equipment. Objects must be stowed carefully. In microgravity, putting something down is not a thing. If you let go, it floats. If it floats, it might disappear into the wrong corner, or block a vent, or become an annoyance that steals minutes later. So there is a gentle evening sweep. Clip things in place. Tether what must be tethered. Close containers. Wipe surfaces. They check messages, maybe a short note from home. Not dramatic, not long, just a thread connecting them to Earth. They eat something small if needed. They drink water. They brush their teeth, tidy their crew quarter, adjust the lighting. They might take a moment at a window. Earth is below, rolling by with slow confidence, like it has all the time in the universe. Then they climb into the sleeping bag, except climb isn't right. They float into it. They zip it up. They secure it. They settle. And now, the most interesting part, the body believes it. The nervous system accepts that this is rest. The eyelids grow heavy, breathing slows, thoughts soften. A human being falls asleep while traveling thousands of kilometers per hour, held inside a thin shell of metal and engineering, surrounded by vacuum. And the sleep is real. Returning to Earth, gravity feels like a heavy blanket. After weeks or months, the mission ends. Returning to Earth is intense. The ride down includes heat, vibration, and a kind of gravity that grows stronger by the minute. After so long without weight, even modest gravity can feel powerful. When astronauts land, their bodies may feel weak or unsteady, dizzy, unfamiliar with balance, surprised by the weight of their own heads and limbs. They recover with support and training, physical therapy, gradual rebuilding of strength, careful monitoring. And many astronauts say something that sounds almost tender. They miss floating. They miss the ease of gliding. They miss the strange comfort of sleeping without pressure points. Then they walk outside, breathe air that isn't filtered by machines, feel weather on skin, and remember another tenderness. Earth is not only home because it is familiar. Earth is home because it fits. Closing the most ordinary thing, done in the most extraordinary place. If you remove the rockets and the vocabulary, and the heroic framing, astronaut life becomes something quietly reassuring. In orbit, astronauts still do human things. They eat dinner, they drink water, they clean up, they exercise, they solve problems, they miss people, they laugh sometimes, they get tired, they go to sleep. The setting is extraordinary, but the daily rhythm is recognizable. And that's the gentle lesson hiding inside spaceflight. Humans can carry home as a routine. Home is not only a place. Home is a set of needs met reliably: air, water, warmth, safety, companionship, rest. So, as you let yourself drift toward sleep, imagine that station again, a small, bright island moving through night. Fans whisper, lights dim, tools are stowed. A crew member zips into a sleeping bag attached to a wall, closes their eyes, and rests. Earth turns below, steady, blue, patient. And here, on the ground, you rest too, supported by gravity instead of microgravity, breathing air that's been here all along, safe under the oldest life support system we know, a living planet. Sweet dreams.